We are a liberal and progressive congregation, open to those who share our values of free thought and lifelong learning. We do not require that you feel the same beliefs that we have. Indeed, here you will find many different paths. Welcome to Tapestry, a Unitarian Universalist congregation.
Thank you all for being here this morning. I woke up and realized how deeply that this is the place that I need to be today. Our worship theme for the month of November is Care for the Soul, and this Sunday I was going to talk about exactly what a soul is. And next Sunday I was going to deliver the sermon, The Soul of Our Country. In light of the presidential election and the anxiety that we are all feeling right now, I've decided to flip these topics. That means we'll diverge a little bit from the printed order of service this morning, and instead of talking about the mysterious light within each of us, I'll be talking about the core motivation and identity of this country of ours. I'm sorry for any confusion that shift may cause, but I felt like we really need to talk about what happened on Tuesday and what continues to unfold in the wake of the election. With that in mind, let me say welcome to Tapestry. You are indeed welcomed here, all of you. In this sanctuary, may you find safety, respect, love, and hope. Would you now please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing our opening hymn? It's number 100. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. Hearts are definitely full this week. You can see that clearly in the candles that have been lit in silent recognition of joys and sorrows. There's also a pretty profound collection of written joys and sorrows to share with you this morning. I have the news that Fern Perkle, who we don't know because she hasn't made it here to Tapestry because of ill health, the wife of Gary Booth. She was a civil rights activist. She died on Friday at the age of 90. The world will be a poorer place because of her death. I don't see Gary here today, but you may reach out to him next Sunday when he's here. And Kathy Spawn asks for our thoughts and prayers for her son Christopher, who's serving in Afghanistan at a base that was recently bombed. We do have good news. Judy Tracy shares with us that she has a new niece. Her name is Eliza Jean, and she's 2 years old today. 2 days, sorry. And Nikki Genty shares with us that she's submitting her first graduate school application this week for music therapy at Western Michigan University. Awesome. And last but not least, the Bear Gothard family is asking for prayers for peace and reconciliation in this time of divisiveness in our country. For those joys and sorrows that we have heard and those that we have seen represented in candles, would you join me in reading our congregational response? For your joys, we join you in celebration. For your sorrows and concerns, may you feel our compassion. For all that is spoken and unspoken, may the caring of our beloved community sustain you. And now for our young and young at heart, Caitlin, wherever she is, has a story. If you want to come up and join us up front on the carpet.
Down here, please, Brianna. Can you sit right here, sweetie? You're right in front of me. I don't have any pictures today, but that's all right. The only picture is the front of the book. It's not a super long story, though. How's everybody doing today? So Reverend Kent just said he's changed the topic of his sermon, but that's all right. It's not changed too drastically. He was going to talk a little bit about the soul of each of us. Does anyone have an idea of what that is or what they think the soul is? Brianna?
The soul is inside your body.
It's inside your body. Other ideas? Sophia? You're not sure? I don't know either, Sophia. That's
According to some religions, it departs when you die.
okay. According to some religions, it departs when you die. Any other ideas? Yes.
It's what makes up you.
It's what makes up you. These are all great answers. So the story today is about the soul. Garrett mentioned in other religions. So this is from the Hindu religion. All right. In Hinduism, the spirit that is inside all of us in living beings is called Brahma. Brahma not only supports living beings, but also supports the whole universe. This is the formless nature of God, the Absolute. So here's a story about that. You ready, Sophia? All right. It's called See God in All Beings. Okay. In a forest lived a holy man who had many disciples. All right, so he was a teacher and he had lots of students. There's no pictures. Did someone just say there's not moving? There's no pictures. That's the only picture you guys get. It looks like this. It's just he taught them to see all. Are you ready, Brianna? We're good? Okay. He taught them to see God in all beings and to bow down before them. Okay, so he told his students to bow down before everybody and everything because God is in everything. All right. Suddenly he heard a shout, "Get out of the way, a mad elephant is coming." Everyone but the disciple of the holy man ran away. Why did everyone run away?
Because I remember the story of my mom.
Well, what was coming at them?
I
There was a mad elephant. An elephant's a really big animal, and he's coming running at you. He saw the elephant as God. You can tell me later, sweetie. In another form. So why should he run away from it? He stood still, bowed before the elephant, and began meditating on God in the form of the elephant, as it's come running at him. The trainer of the elephant shouted, "Run away, run away!" But the disciple didn't move. The animal grabbed him with its trunk, threw him to one side, and went on his way. All right, so he was thrown out of the way. The disciple lay unconscious on the ground. Hearing what had happened, his god brothers came to him and carried him to the hermitage. So the other students came and got him to help him because he was sort of mauled by the elephant. With the help of some herbal medicine, he regained consciousness. Then someone asked, "When you knew the mad elephant was coming, why didn't you leave the place?" He answered, "Our teacher has taught us that God is in all beings, animals as well as human. Therefore, I thought it was only the elephant god that was coming, so I didn't run away." All this, the guru said, the guru said, "Yes, my child, it is true that the elephant god was coming, but the trainer god, so the elephant trainer, asked you to get out of the way. Why didn't you trust the trainer's words? Also, the elephant does not have the self-knowledge that all are God. God dwells in all beings. God is even in the tiger, but you cannot hug the tiger on that account." So the lesson being, be close only with good people, all right, that will support you. And you guys definitely need to make decisions. So if a mad elephant comes running at you, get out of the way, right?
And hop under its belly.
Or hop under its belly. All right, we are going to go to class, all right? So follow Garrett out, please.
For a short time of meditation, sit back in your chair. Relax for a moment. Take a couple of deep breaths. Know that you are safe here, that you are loved, and let the silence of this community embrace you. Namaste. Amen and blessed be. On Wednesday, several Tapestry members and some new friends gathered here to share some tears and some laughter, and we expressed our fears and we shared words of encouragement. After some chatting for a while, I led everyone through a short ritual. And I would probably do the same here today, but we just don't have time with this many people. I asked everyone who came to take a stone like this one. And I told them that stones are a nice metaphor for the heaviness in our hearts. Stones were the most primitive weapons, and we've all heard the saying about sticks and stones breaking bones, and the damage words can do too. And I asked everyone who was there to hold their stone and to tell us what it was that they were most fearful of in a Trump presidency. Parents expressed concerns about teaching their children how this man was democratically chosen to be the leader of our country. Grandparents expressed fears about the environmental sustainability of our planet for their beloved grandchildren. Some of us feared having loved ones deported or being deported ourselves. Some of us feared Trump's flippancy about nuclear weapons, not so much that he would necessarily use them, but that he would allow them to proliferate around the world. Some of us fear a swift rollback of rights that the LGBT community has so recently gained. We feared the loss of access to safe, legal abortions for women who need them. And with the repeal of Obamacare, the loss of necessary medical coverage for vulnerable people. We fear that this election would embolden racist and homophobic individuals to act out more directly and more aggressively. We talked about the likelihood of global economic upheaval and the vulnerability of our own savings. Two of the fears that were expressed were very abstract but also very real. One, we were almost all afraid of the seemingly endless possibilities of unknown dangers that could await. And we were afraid of the hatred in our own hearts at this moment. I offer this litany of fears not to make you worry more, I promise. I offer it to remind you that you are not alone, that the fear in your heart has been spoken aloud within these walls. Your fear is legitimate, and there's space for it here. Wednesday night, we gathered here to share our fears in this ritual, and the next night, Thursday night, was the board meeting. It started sort of gloomy. As we started the meeting, we shared some of our stories of election night, and some of us jokingly, some quite seriously, talked about countries we would move to. Eventually, though, our meeting got underway. And before we knew it, we were talking about budgets and leases and strategic timelines, and it felt really good for a couple of hours to get back into a routine of business as usual. We were being ourselves again. It feels good to return to business as usual, even for a short time. And that's a luxury that a lot of us in South Orange County can afford. For most of us, before we know it, the world will be humming right along, just as it did before. But if we're going to be allies to marginalized communities, we have to take their experiences seriously. For those who have been in the crosshairs of hatred for the past year of the Trump campaign, business as usual is a long ways off. If we're going to engage in a struggle for justice for all people, we have to be vigilant about the seduction of our comfortable lives. It's not that you have to give everything up and join the revolution, but you do have to pay attention. You have to, we all have to do what we can to stay awake enough to the real needs of our neighbors. For a lot of us in South Orange County, staying awake is one of our biggest challenges and our biggest duties. Today, I'm supposed to be talking about the soul of our country. That's a complicated task. Now, there's a cute story that's often told about the soul of an individual person. It's poignant, and if I'm completely honest, it's a little bit trite and overused. But it seems to resonate more with me about our country than an individual. This story is said to be of Cherokee Indian origin, but no one really knows. It goes something like this. One evening, an old man told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle is between two wolves inside us all. One wolf is anger, jealousy, superiority, pride, aggression, and ego. The other wolf is serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, and compassion." The grandson thought about this for a minute and asked naturally, "Well, grandfather, which of the wolves win?" And the old man told him, "The one that you feed." This story came back to my mind this week because it reminds me not just of the soul of an individual, it reminds me of the soul of our country right now. Within our country, there are two competing inclinations. On one hand, there is an inclination toward compassion, opportunity, access, equality, forgiveness, and a sense of abundance. The opposing force in our country embraces punishment, judgment, control, hierarchy, and a sense of scarcity. These are not two political parties. These are simply different mindsets that have shaped our country from the very beginning, and they're battling daily in the halls of power, in business, and in every encounter we have with other people on the street. For me, this metaphor of two wolves is especially fitting because it reflects the cunning and the power of these opposing forces within us. And it's easier to see the cunning and power of an inclination towards exclusion and hierarchy. Those seem like powerful forces. At times, we've been tricked into believing that those inclinations are more powerful or even more natural than love. But the inclination to cooperation is just as natural as the inclination to competition. Our ability to build communities, to care for our young, to communicate and share are hardwired into us. The drive toward cooperation is what has allowed humans to thrive, and if you want to get more basic than that, it's what allows cells to develop and life to come together. Cooperation and sharing is the basis of life. There's nothing about punishment, control, competition, or hatred that is more natural. In this comparison of wolves, I want you to imagine the love and the ferocity of a mother wolf for her cubs. I want you to remember that wolves are pack animals. They hunt together and share with one another to feed the pack. Love, cooperation, sharing, these are in no way weak forces. They're not passive. They don't give up without a fight. Last week I spoke about our calling to nonviolent resistance, and this week I stand by the nonviolent part of that sermon, and I want to emphasize the resistance part today. In our country, there are two wolves battling one another, not two poodles or two teddy bears. They're wolves. They're powerful forces. The second reason I like this wolf metaphor so much is that they seem to be like equally matched powers. It may feel like the entire country took a dramatic turn in a different direction on November 8th, but we have to remember this was not a landslide victory. Far from it. Trump barely squeaked out a victory on a technicality. That's why the story of two wolves is so powerful. They're presented as equally strong opponents. It's not a story of predator and prey. This is a story of equally matched forces in a near stalemate. That means it's the story of very small differences making a big impact on the outcome. It's easy for privileged people in America to reflect on their life and a vision of American history that feels pretty darn good. It's also easy for historically marginalized people to point out the great flaws of our history. And I hear both of those histories and I agree. My honest sense is that these two wolves in us, these two opposing inclinations, have been with us from the beginning, and they're still evenly matched. American history is a history of oppression and resistance. It's a history of two wolves, a history of greed and compassion doing daily battle. This land that we call our own was taken by force from people who previously lived here. There are lots of different numbers that get thrown around, but it's estimated that from 12 million people down to barely 237,000 American Indians survived those years. I can help you with the math. That's a reduction of 11,763,000 people in 400 years. It was one of the most extensive genocides in human history. Not all is greed and murder, though. A lot of the people who came to this land, especially to New England, were searching for a right to practice their religion without persecution. They fled King Charles I, who believed in the divine right to rule. How convenient for him. So he relentlessly persecuted religious dissenters, leading to a wave of 20,000 Puritans fleeing here in about a 10-year period. Then the state of Pennsylvania opened up as a refuge for Quakers, and the Baptists and the Protestants and the Anabaptists flocked there. The lure of religious freedom and opportunity to improve themselves brought them to America. They made this perilous journey for the sake of their faith, to practice freely. We have a great potential here for both forces, all the way from our roots. In the past few days, I've heard a lot of people embracing the Constitution as a source of solace and an emblem that our democracy is solid. Today, I want to offer a short reminder that one of the things that made that document, that great compromise, possible was a compromise over slavery. That northern states eventually said, yeah, sure, that's okay. Slavery is in the DNA of our Constitution and our democracy. It's our history. And so is resistance. We know that slavery eventually ended, but we forget that from the very beginning of that evil institution, brave women and men risked their lives to help usher slaves to freedom. The Underground Railroad was not a small project for just a few people. It was an intricate network of radicals that lasted almost 2 centuries. An estimated 100,000 former slaves escaped to freedom via that railroad. And the people who helped them, the conductors, came from all sorts of backgrounds. They were free-born black people. They were white abolitionists and former slaves and American Indians. And they were liberal clergy and liberal churches. I've chosen these couple of examples of American history because they point to some of our earliest roots. It was a somewhat arbitrary choice. In any decade, in any year, in any region of this country, I could have found similar examples, both of oppression and resistance. There are 2 wolves inside the soul of America. One is anger, aggression, scarcity, exclusion, and domination. The other wolf is compassion, generosity, kindness, opportunity, and welcome. We choose every day which of those wolves we will feed. The balance between the two is neck and neck, and that's why a small effort matters. So I told you at the beginning of this sermon that we used stones at our gathering on Wednesday night. I asked everyone to take a stone and name their fears and their hearts. And then I asked everyone to share a hopeful word of encouragement. And I reminded them that stones aren't just weapons. They're also primitive tools. They're what we build our homes out of. They help us light fires for food and warmth. Stones can be used for building bridges instead of walls. And so I asked everyone in the circle to see these stones not as worries or as weapons. I asked them to see these stones as foundations for change. And I want to ask you to do the same thing. I ask you to see the election November 8th, 2016 as the beginning of something new. It wasn't just the end of a nasty election. It can be the beginning of a new commitment to stand up for justice, speaking out for our own rights, and standing in solidarity with the most marginalized among us. It's not going to happen overnight, but I hope that eventually your disappointment, anger, and fear can be transformed into action. Don't let this moment fizzle out. Don't return to business as usual. The election of an explicitly racist, misogynistic, power-hungry Donald Trump is not something to ignore. For your sake and for the sake of everyone else, we have to turn our stones of worry into a foundation of a new and better way of being together in the world. The struggle in the soul of our country is not an easy one. It's not one that we chose, but it's one that we can't avoid. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, knowing the light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are all together again.
These closing words come from the Reverend Rebecca Ann Parker. So I invite you to take the hand of someone near you. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the world of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. Each of us must answer this question: what will I do with my gifts? Now go in peace and let the light within you be a blessing to the world.